And as we wrap up, our next and final session of the day is moving forward together and next steps discussion. So, can you just share your final comments on if you were to leave us, particularly funders and advocates, with a challenge, what would that be that we should be rising to? Or any other closing comments you have? I want to be respectful of Julie's time.
No, no, I just like I'm in no position to challenge anybody till I have met the challenges that I face myself. So, I mean, knowing who's here, right, knowing you, my lady, you guys challenge, set your sights higher than anybody else. Betty, were you going to try to answer that question for us? I saw you raise your hand.
I wouldn't even dare. But I did want to just suggest one possible collaboration, just to build on that, which is that several years ago, as a self-funded, I had the Labor Commissioner's Office. Randall Flores was part of that, and it was the staff level. I think one, it really helped to promote the kind of advocates and Julia mentioned. Our attorneys had a really good they knew that the fact, like just pointing out about the intersection of workers' rights and any low-wage workers are eligible for deferred action under frontline workers. There could be, I have to say this like for nonprofit law students, we developing relationships with deputies, also making guidance on the for deferred action. I think that might be
Yeah. So I mean, what I was saying in very shorthand, and it wasn't my idea, it was something Betty and others had created, was, when I was saying we if you can help workers with the claim form, it's something that we're talking again with Fernando about and trying to develop in the Bay Area. I think, but all of that does require money. It requires funding on your end to be able to do it. Right now that the welcome mat is out and we can make it, work in ways that the last one may have been hard to do, even because there's support, from the top of the agency. I feel like that maybe the thing to leave is it's great to be in a room with both the people who've been doing this work for decades and doing it so effectively, and the people who have funded it and are interested now in figuring out how to fund it creatively. Because I go back to my point about, I think it's a golden moment in which what we do now, when you don't have to fight the leadership inside the agencies, you don't have to fight, we used to bring litigation, be fighting the agency about what theories they should bring or parties they should have. That should happen much less now. So we can really focus on the hard work of how do you institutionalize all the things that we wanted to do. And I think that definitely requires staff and funding and resources from your perspective to be able to send staff to man clinics, right? To be able to send staff to investigate supervised retaliation complaint investigators who are law school students. I think a project like that presented to a group of progressive funders who care about these issues, backed by agencies who really, not just want to see it happen, but need it for us to be as effective as we want to be, would be really tremendous.
That's excellent. Ellen, final words.
Because they got to see Mark wants to say.
It really does beg the question. 800 counties. So you have fewer authorized to pay. DLSE had. The question is there anybody in the talking about increasing resources? Those 200 more. That probably would be under what would be needed workforce. Is there anybody talking within the administration? How could we help facilitate that conversation with them? Or if we can't. So that's what the bill. Have right action can't be funded.
Go ahead, Ellen.
That went up nicely.
That's right.
So the answer is yes, there have been conversations about it, but I think everybody here, knows well what the pressures are on the budget. The other thing that's coming up is that both of our agencies' funding is sunsetting in July 2013. So I know this is not funny at all, but I have to say that I find it so ironic that it's possible that under serious worker right advocates in charge of the organizations, it could be the time when the funding completely is gone for both of these organizations, right? Both these agencies.
I would advocate on employers back as part of the workers. You authorize that thing. There's at least 3 years. Both agencies funding in the last 3 years. There ought to be a cost of living increase.
This is,
the workforce has grown so much larger than the industry.
I would suggest here a great messaging, role for all of you. This is not something inside the administration we can do, especially now before the election. And I think, though, making the arguments, op-eds, kind of indicating all of this, I think that this is the employer surcharge that we depend on. I mean, we get some money from federal OSHA, but the rest, just as DLSE, is dependent on employers. A case can be made. I mean, it was unfortunate that in the workers' comp fight, there was a lot of talk about dysfunction and friction and everything else that was wrong with workers' comp that's cheating workers of benefits. But there was no discussion about doing a better job of preventing those injuries and illnesses. There was no discussion, inside and outside. Those kind of discussions, when I go out, that is what I talk about. That's kind of an answer to Bruce as well about the good employers, because it is in their interest. There is some common ground, not only in terms of morale and keeping a skilled, strong, dedicated workforce, but not paying out big liability, big workers' comp costs. But I think some of those things, those arguments about why this kind of protection, why leveling the playing field and making it possible, that we're not just the low road economy for California, that is not the future of California. I think those kind of arguments we can try to make inside, but we have our constraints. I think it's a lot of those can be made very effectively. And I think, frankly, in terms of thinking ahead, I think the brilliance of the messaging session we just had, the kind of insights, and I have followed messaging for the last 10 years, at Rosenberg with the immigrant rights world, and I, like Angelica, I feel, oh my God, the things they told us and trained us on, we were dead wrong. I think those things, it occurred to me, and Victor and I talked that we've never done that for the labor advocates. the people who are at the crossroads of labor and immigrant rights. We really ought to do it. It is offensive, as Onat said, you know, like the jobs no one would do. That's humiliating, you know. It's disgusting kind of vocabulary we've used. But I do think we would benefit significantly, your campaigns and our work, if we invested in a bit of that. I think it would give us a little more. And I also just think, you know, to kind of wrap this up, I guess, unless we want to keep having fun here, and not call another session, but I think the message about, you know, that I learned well working with all of you and colleagues, you know, in the foundation world is the absolute need for long, sustained funding, and to make it possible, yes, to staff the, you know, the offices, but also to be part of sessions like this to really learn again, you know, and build on campaigns and figure out, you know, even more effective ways, and to sustain this work, you know, which wouldn't have happened. I mean, the gains that, you know, all of you have made, you know, the belief of funders, you know, like Earl in worker centers, has elevated them. The campaigns for so many years of all of you have, and I think there hasn't been that kind of funding in the worker health and safety world to come up again with the authentic stuff, as Dolores says, of worker rights. I mean, something as simple as really involving workers. Linda Delp of LOSH, of Labor Occupational Health Program of UCLA, has been working with, you know, unions, worker advocates to do training that's meaningful, not you know, the kind of bureaucratic pieces of paper that simply, you know, describes workers' comp and labor standards rights and OSHA, but, you know, programs, our HEAT program, I think, you know, because we've been able to use PAGA money, I think those kinds of things, again, you've all hit it, that workers need to know their rights, all kinds of rights, that our agencies are oversight, that workers have to be empowered through their organizations, through their might, to assert them. We need to do something about their status so that they are even beginning to feel free to assert them. I mean, it's very, very hard to ask workers to come forth on any of these complaints and feel like anything is going to happen, both because of the limited remedies and also because of the very, very real intimidation they face day and night. No matter how good our inspectors are, how careful they are, if they meet them outside, inside, that the opportunities for companies to harass and terrify workers is great, you know, in given the, you know, immigration situation. So I think the, you know, the kind of lesson of my life and of my, you know, the path of my career is really to bring those two together, to think of very important roles for funders. I think in this different, you know, new marriage of both health and safety and other labor rights, that's a very new frame, and I think, you know, one that long needed, and that, you know, a kind of we need to dive deeper into that to see, you know, how more effective these campaigns could be, and so.
Great, thank you. Please join me in thanking Julie and Ellen.